Good morning. Welcome to the morning market briefing. Today is May 20th, 2026. Hope you are doing well. We have a interesting show today. We're going to be talking a little bit about what the consumer is doing, especially as we hear from a lot of companies in that space. Target, TJ Maxx, Lowe's reported. We'll recap what happened with Home Depot. Tom, I wanted to start off with some news overnight, just seeing how that affects the political realm. We are seeing oil down this morning, bonds rates down a little bit. Certainly nothing to indicate that we're doing away with the trend, but maybe a little bit of a bounce today in equities as well as bond. So that would be good for accounts. It'll be interesting to see if it holds. And I'm not sure exactly what that's on. Trump was out there yesterday talking a little bit about extending the leash further on Iran. He did make further threats about ending things militarily with the country, but also said that things could happen in a few days or the weekend or next week, which is certainly a push out from what he said on Monday, which was in 2 or 3 days. So I think that's one of the things that the market is keying on, but also it was a good day for Trump on the primary side, if you want to discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that whether or not you like him or don't like him, Donald Trump is an insane political force. I mean, Thomas Massie, who's been sort of, I feel like he's emerging, had started to emerge as almost like the new Rand Paul, but maybe more on the hates Israel side than the pure libertarian side. And I mean, he sort of has got his comeuppance in the last 24 hours. I mean, well, really, the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to get into Pinecone Gate, but you can do your own Googling on that one. But it's pretty entertaining stuff, if you ask me. But I mean, you've seen so many people who have sort of tried to start their own like subcategory of the Republican Party, where they're on board with some stuff, but they're anti-Israel or they're anti some piece of the MAGA movement, and they just get smashed. And Massey's the latest example of that. You saw Burt Jones do really well in Georgia. There's going to be a runoff there. It's just going to be an interesting next couple months, because I think that one thing we've consistently seen in the Trump era is that the polling doesn't necessarily match up with what actually happens. And you're seeing a lot of people saying, oh man, they're going to get crushed in midterms. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I mean, the expectation was that he would get crushed by Hillary Clinton. He did not. The expectation was that he was going to lose by a mile to Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris, and that didn't play out. And so I would caution people in just assuming that most people are against what's happening, because the general malaise that's sort of settled over U.S. politics, where most people are jaded, and all day long you hear, oh, he's the stupidest, he's the worst. And there aren't a lot of people who I think at this point are just super vocal about it, particularly in that, if you go to rural areas, there are plenty of MAGA flags flying around. You go around here, the only signs you see are Democratic signs. There are very few, Trump banners on homes, but I would suspect that there are plenty of people who are just not in the mood to deal with the people with the signs across the street for Miracle Jackson or whatever the lady who was running for Supreme Court is, because they're just so aggressive and insufferable. But I've been following the LA mayor race really closely, and I think that you're starting to see somebody like Spencer Pratt take the stage, where he's like, hey, what I would like to do is enforce the laws and not have homeless people doing drugs in the front playground of your children's school, and let homes burn down, and have a 40-mile or 40-block run of Skid Row in LA. And it's really not even partisan. It's like one party is offering death and destruction and unlimited payouts for illegal immigrants and putting Somali lives above American lives in terms of importance, and the other one is just be like, hey, we should just enforce the laws, man. And I think that there's a lot of people who maybe aren't super vocal about that, but they're very much on board with that. And I think you saw that kind of play out yesterday, where despite the fact that there was so much craziness around the ICE stuff, most people are still on board with that. I was getting a little too probably into the weeds with the Somali thing, but like, if you're really on board with women's rights, you should look up the rates of female genital mutilation in Somalia, I asked Grok this morning, it's 99.2% of women have a type 3, which is the most severe form of female genital mutilation, is considered a human rights violation. And yet we're somehow supposed to be both supporting of women, but also making sure we get as many of these people in our country as possible. You can look up the word infibulation. It's one of the most gruesome things I've ever heard of, but it's basically, 9.9 out of every 10 women in Somalia have that done to them at the age of 5. So that's my thought on that. I don't know. I'm going way off the rails here, but suffice to say, I think that Trump is far more powerful politically than people think, even though he's a lame duck president, even though there are so many headlines that suggest that he's the worst president of all time and this war in Iran is not going well. You should be cognizant that what you hear on television may not necessarily reflect what the average person is thinking.
Especially, I think, the average person in the Republican Party. And I think that's something that everyone can kind of take. We don't know what this means for the general election or the midterms, because this is just obviously within each individual party. But what we can say is that I think that Trump still has a strong grip, maybe even stronger grip on the Republican Party than perhaps we thought. Yes, the Massey situation, but even here, Burt Jones beating Rick Jackson. And even though Rick Jackson, if you look at the map, wins all of the counties in and around Atlanta, so where the big population hubs are, but the Trump-endorsed candidate takes all of these other remaining counties, and it's enough to put him over the top. So I think that's something to continue to watch and be mindful of as we get closer to the midterms and the implications thereof.
And thank goodness that Derek Dooley not going to be in charge of anything. As a proud Tennessee Vol, he had his chance to operate a state-run team, and he did very poorly at it. And in fact, it was very embarrassing. And so I don't think that he should be able to operate at a state level, be a highly paid government employee in the state that I live in, let alone the state that my football team plays in.
On the economic side, I think that, again, the oil prices coming down, I think will be good for markets today. So we'll see what happens with that. But on the consumer side, we did get a number of companies that reported earnings. We had Target. Maybe we can pull up those numbers, Hicks. But if you just look at these numbers, this is how we look at companies. So it's a little bit behind the curtain, so to speak. We can see that same-store sales accelerated to the highest amount in at least the last 6 quarters. Driven by traffic at Target stores. There was a little bit of ticket there, although that was kind of premiumization, less inflation driven. Digital sales really took off. And yes, it was an easy comp. Q1 was the easiest comp from last quarter. Last year was down 4% last year, so up 6 on that is certainly easier than the +1 comp from the previous quarter. But nevertheless, this is a good start for the new CEO, Mike Fidelki. They've got some good growth in the health and wellness side and the baby side. I tell you, I almost had a conniption in Target last night. My wife had me get diapers, and usually we just order diapers or she does it. And yet last night I drew the short straw. So I went into Target and I look through all the places with trying to find diapers. I go through the shampoo. I go through the cleaning supplies. I go to the paper towels. I go to the napkins. I go to the plates. I go to all of these places. And no diapers. And so I have to end up going back to the very back of the store, past all the baby clothes, past all the baby books, past all the strollers. And I finally get to the diapers. And they're tucked away, which I think is probably a very ingenious way of laying things out if you know where the diapers are. Because, if my wife goes there, she'll find a bunch of clothes on the way for Joseph, on her way to get diapers.
New toys.
For me, it is a huge irritant. Nevertheless, I think that Target is crushing it on babies stuff right now. They're also doing very well on trading cards. They expanded their trading card assortment. So leaning into some things that are hot items in the zeitgeist, but the stock's only up 1%, which I thought was interesting. Given where sentiment is on the name and given these results, I would have thought the stock would have been higher.
Not to throw out a Ben phrase, but it's a real show me story. And I think people are they're waiting for 2 consecutive positive results, because one positive result is not a trend make. I will say I played the late night. Everybody goes down, the baby's down. You're just like, but we're out of diapers. You got to go. I tell you what, it's dangerous out there. If you end up at the Walmart at 9 o'clock on a Thursday, you never know what could happen. Though I was in a similar spot. I had to run out. We needed bananas and cat food last night, and I thought, since we need the bananas, I'm not going to go to Walmart. I'm going to go to Publix. And I'll tell you, there was a guy, he was wearing an all-black sweatsuit and a firearm, and he was muttering to himself out loud while I was trying to check out of the self-checkout, and I thought I was going to have a nicer experience going to Publix. I'm very much worried that this guy is going to kick off a mass casualty event right next to me. He was just like, I'm sitting there, I'm, typing in the code for the bananas and the thing, and he's just like, like, I was like, I didn't realize that I was going to die tonight trying to buy bananas at the nice grocery store by my house. So, listen, I know that struggle. It's finally time to pop a squat, turn the TV on, see what's on Netflix, and it's like, hey, you got to go get some stuff at the store. And you're like, man, brutal. What a day.
Just continues.
Yeah.
And then TJ Maxx and Lowe's both reported. TJ Maxx had an unbelievable quarter, but they even said, we're not flowing through the entirety of the first quarter above plan growth because of, there's higher cost of fuel, and that could hurt consumer. And I think that's going on with Target. I think in general with a lot of these retailers, whether it's Home Depot yesterday, Lowe's today, Target, TJ Maxx, they're saying, look, Q1 was good, but Q1 is the lowest quarter of the year. No one buys anything in Q1. The weather's miserable. Everyone's debt is high from Christmas. They're returning things, if anything. It's just a weird, bad quarter. And you're certainly not going to raise guidance based on that. And so none of these companies really did. Target did say we're going to be at the top end of the guidance, which is pretty aggressive growth even now. But
and it was pre-war. The snow globe got shaken pretty hard at the end of February.
Yeah, so come back in December and maybe see where the numbers are. But I think that's a lot of the big takeaways on the consumer side. Good to great, frankly, but can't really make too much of out of Q1. And then Analog Devices came out with just blockbuster results today, but the stock's run so much. I don't know if any numbers would have really got the stock up. So they're flat to down pre-market, but just continuing to enable the data center transition. So good news on that. We do have to get super producer Hicks, who's not just a super producer, but he's actually doubling on producer work today. He is meeting with someone who we might be able to help. That's good. Just double duty for Mr. Hicks.
That's what he's known for.
And on that note,
big duty guy. Oh, also, word on the street is the SpaceX IPO prospectus is going to drop today. So keep your eyes out.
Did you hear about the person who died?
This is a joke. This is a setup.
No,
Tell me more, Ben.
Someone fell in their Austin last week. A worker fell. They said they were being pushed too hard and fell in the facility to their death.
Were they pushed to their death, or did they were being emotionally pushed?
I think it was an accident. It was an accident fall. But the fire department was going to come, and in the end, the police just came, and no ambulance came or anything.
Man.
And then there was also a death.
We need those Foxconn nets.
There was also a death of a lady in New York, fell into a manhole.
Oh.
The cover had been removed.
You're gonna have to define. I'm not quite sure what the difference is.
It was on Fifth Ave, 52nd Street and Fifth Ave, so right kind of downtown. And because people had been just stealing manhole covers all across New York, and so this one was totally empty, and she fell 11 feet to her death. Just got out of her Mercedes and died.
I mean, that can mean a lot of things in the year 2026. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I can't define a manhole, nor would I even attempt to because I'm not a biologist. But be careful out there, folks.
We'll see you tomorrow.